Here's a short video to demonstrate how to use the Vlookup function in either Excel or Google Sheets or really any spreadsheet. The function is common for spreadsheets regardless of the application used. The purpose of Vlookup is to relate two lists on a common field or a column. And so as an example, you see here I have a couple of different short lists of employee ID, an employee's name just as a single letter, their designation or their role, and then I want to bring into this list their salary and their cell phone number. Well, their salary is based on their role, their designation over here, and then their cell phone number is based on their name, which we're here just using single letters. So there's two different lists, and I want to bring them together in a common list. So to demonstrate how this works, I'm going to enter the function. We got to have a employee name, and I'll just put in A. Where's A right there? Get the function back, or the focus. And here I'm going to type in the function. So I'm going to type the equals key Vlookup, and then when I type a parentheses, it's going to open up a helper for the function. So it's asking for the search key, which what is it that you want me to look up? And here are the arguments up here that I've put. Search key, range, index, and is sorted. What do you want me to look up? Where do you want me to look in the range? What column to bring back is called the index, and is the list sorted, which usually it's not. And so you just type in true or false, which would be false. So here in the helper, the search key is what do you want me to look up? And I want you to look up that cell, which is the employee name, type a comma, and it will go to the next element in the function, which is the range. And so I'm just going to come over here, and I'm going to highlight this range, and you see it's copying it there in the helper function. Type a comma, the index, which is which column do you want me to bring back? It starts at 1, but I want you to bring back column 2. So I type in a 2, type a comma, and the next element is it sorted? You can see the example there, and you can read down here, is it sorted, true or false? And I'm going to type in false. Now I'm going to type a closing parentheses and return. And of course it says NA. Did not find value A. Oh, because I did the wrong range. So let me highlight the range here because I always want the name and the cell phone number. Oops. Let's delete that and see if I can. There. It helps to pay attention. So that's an automated function that brings back the cell phone number based on the employee name. Well, let's test this. Let's change the name to B and watch the cell phone number change. C, see the cell phone number changes right there. I can type in D. So I can look up on an individual basis in an unsorted separate list and bring it back according to the function. So now, what if we had a big long list? So now we want to bring this back into our list here. So I'm going to enter in another function and bring back in the salary from this list over here. So I'm going to type in equals Vlookup, parentheses, search key is going to be the designation. So I'm going to look up that field, comma, what range, and I'm going to highlight the range, type a comma. The index is, I want the second column. So here's the first, here's the second. So I'm going to type 2, comma, false, because the list may or may not be sorted, so you're safest, and you can see it's not sorted. And now I'm going to type return. So project manager makes 85,000. So now we can copy this down, except there's one more little trick, and that is any spreadsheet, when you copy a function down, will change any cell references to float, to change with the reference. We don't want to do that. We want this to be fixed. So the trick to know is how to make fixed cell references, which is by using $signs. And you can manually type these in, or you can highlight the range, and here's the trick to know. Press F4. And that will make the range fixed. So now I can type on it, and you see up here we have $signs. Now I can copy this down, and it automatically looks up this cell in that range and brings back column 2. What to look up, where to look, which column to bring back, and is the list sorted. If that seems technical, if that seems complex, it actually isn't. And the more you use this, the more you can kind of flow with it, and it's very, very powerful. And I'll show you another example of why in a minute. So let's look up cell phone number equals V lookup, comma. I want to look up the employee's name. So I want to type in over here, click on it, comma, the range, which is down here, and then enter a comma. The index, which again is 2, it's not always 2, and then false, closing parentheses, and once again I can type here, click return to open this up, or hit escape. I can come up here to the function, and I want to type enter, press F4 to make it a fixed reference, and now I can copy this down, and there's all the phone numbers from. So we've built this table based on 2 different lookup values from 2 different tables and brought them in to the same. So these ranges could be a whole nother tab or a whole nother spreadsheet, and it could be thousands of rows long. One thing to know in Google Sheets is whatever range you're looking up needs to be in the same spreadsheet that you have open, as opposed to Excel that can go look at another file because it's on the local file system. So let's see a practical example of this, and that it would be looking up student email addresses based on a student ID. So here's an attendance roster from one of my classes, and a student worker, a student assistant, sent this to me in an email. And here's a list of all my students, but these links don't work. They use the system email address, not the student's personal email addresses, since they're not in the student system. But I have their student IDs here. So what if and in fact I know I have a separate list of all of our students and their student IDs, and in that other list is their personal email addresses, so I can send them a reminder saying, hey, my class is coming up in a few days, just wanted to remind you to come to my class. So the way that I would do this would be to highlight right there, that'll do it, very carefully drag down and select the student IDs and their names. And so when I have that, I can press Control-C to copy. Now I'm going to come back and create a new spreadsheet. Okay, thank you very much. Let me come down a few rows, because I always like to put a header on the top of the spreadsheet with some information, title, the source of the information, my name, who created it. Anytime you're working in a shared space, put in some identifying information for the spreadsheet. So here I'm going to press Control-V to paste that information. Now here's a trick. The spreadsheet will automatically identify the type of field. So it'll identify this as text, and it'll identify this as a number. And that's not what we want, because leading zeros are dropped by the spreadsheet in a number. And these leading zeros are important. They make these student IDs unique. So the way to do that would be to select the entire column, say Format number and change it to plain text. Now you can see this changes, but it's lost the leading 0. So the trick to know is, come back here to the first cell. You already have this list on your clipboard, so paste it again. And I'm going to click right copy and paste. And now we have the leading zeros, the student IDs are pasted as text. And I got it off one here so that we got an extra. So now I can use this field, this column, and go to a student list and look up their email. So I'm going to type email there. So how do we do that? Well, we want to bring the student list into another tab. So we're going to create another tab here. And there's a whole nother file that I've already have open here called Students 2017-18. And here's their student ID, their name, and here's their personal email address. So what we want to do to bring it into the sheet we're working with is highlight this whole range. And once I've started to highlight, then what I can do is press Shift, Control, down arrow and extend the whole range. And you can see there's 433 rows. So you don't have to drag your mouse down pages and pages. So now I'm going to hit Control C to copy. I'm going to come back to my spreadsheet in this second tab. And remember, I'm going to come down a few rows because I'll maybe add a heading later. And Control V. And there's our list. So here's the student ID. So now I can come back over to my first sheet and I can do my Vlookup function. So here's equals Vlookup, parentheses, search key is the student ID, comma is the range, and this is a little tricky, but I can come back over here to the sheet and I want to, using the Shift key, highlight the range, and then Shift Control down arrow, and you see the helper function is still on my screen. So now if I hit comma, it'll take me to the next argument, and so I want the email address, so that's 1, 2, 3, fourth field over, which is 4, comma, false, close parentheses, and it takes me back to my sheet. And look, it brought back the email address. But remember, I want the range fixed, so I have to come back up here and highlight the whole range and press F4 to make it fixed, hit return, and now I can copy this down and there are all of the email addresses from the student list based on student ID, and I don't even really need these names, but it helps to kind of corroborate. Now, if it says NA, that means that it did not find the value, and so what that means is that student is either new and not in the student list, or they may be a global student and not in our student list, and you need to go find those in a separate list. But this is a useful way to use the Vlookup function to relate two lists on a common field. And one application would be using a student ID to relate student names to their personal email addresses, or even the cell phone number. We could do that, which really would be pretty easy. We copy this over here and look up, instead of 4, we're going to look up 5 and bring back their cell phone numbers. If I can copy that down. And for some reason that didn't work. Fixed sheet to B9. So, oh, it's A9. So we're looking up A9 because that wasn't fixed. So that's why that. So now I can copy that down. And now we can bring back their cell phone numbers. So, okay, that's a quick look at how to use Vlookup and how to use it to look up student emails. Hope that's useful.